Ruby Rose didn't quietly criticize Sydney Sweeney. She didn't hint. She didn't imply. She fired a direct shot that echoed across the entire entertainment industry. In a single Threads post, Ruby called Sydney a cretin, accused her of ruining the film, and ended with a line that instantly went viral. Christy deserved better. Within minutes, headlines appeared, fan communities split. Film Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, everyone had an opinion. Why? Because this wasn't some minor actress calling out a stranger. This was Ruby Rose, a well-known figure in the LGBTQ+ entertainment world, publicly attacking Sydney Sweeney, one of Hollywood's fastest rising stars. Right after her movie, Christy suffered a painful box office crash, and suddenly, people weren't debating the movie anymore. They were asking a far bigger question. Did Sydney Sweeney ruin the film? Or was Ruby Rose taking a personal loss and turning it into a public war? To answer that, we need to go back to the beginning, to the film, the casting, the early scripts, and what this project really meant to the people involved. For a year straight, Christy was marketed as Sydney Sweeney's dramatic breakthrough, a heavy emotional biopic based on the real life of Christy Martin, one of the most iconic female boxers in American history. A story packed with intensity, the rise of a champion, the pressure of hiding who she was, and the darkest moments she endured behind closed doors. Sydney didn't treat it lightly. She transformed her body. She trained like a real fighter. She studied Christy's style, her demeanor, her life story. Every detail. On paper, this was the kind of role that leads to awards buzz, magazine covers, and serious Hollywood respect. But then came opening weekend. The film premiered on more than 2,000 screens across North America and made just over $1 million. Hollywood insiders didn't sugarcoat it. It was one of the worst wide-release movie openings in recent memory. What made it even stranger is that Sydney's performance actually received solid praise. Critics said she was fierce, committed, powerful, even if the film itself was uneven. So how did a movie with a strong lead performance implode so dramatically? Fans wondered, reviewers speculated, until Ruby Rose stepped in and shifted the entire narrative. Here's the part most people didn't know. Ruby Rose says she was originally attached to the project, not as Christy Martin, but as a character based on Christy's high school girlfriend, a role that would have explored the emotional foundation of Christy's early life. According to Ruby, the earliest version of the script was more intimate, more raw, more character-driven, more focused on Christy's relationships. And in her words, it was life-changing. Ruby said the original team was deeply connected to the material. She believed the people involved truly understood Christy's emotional journey, and she felt at home within that creative circle. But then studios shifted, producers changed, the script changed, and Ruby's version of the film, the one she believed in, disappeared. When Sydney Sweeney's team came on board and reshaped the project, Ruby says the heart of the story was lost. In that context, Ruby's now infamous attack starts to make sense. In her eyes, she didn't just lose a part. She lost the movie she believed deserved to exist. Still, calling another actress a cretin and outright blaming her for a film's failure is something Hollywood simply does not see often. And that's exactly why it went nuclear. Ruby didn't just criticize the movie, she attacked Sydney's place in the movie. That's why Hollywood reacted so strongly. Because in the film industry, calling someone miscast is one thing, but saying they ruined the entire film is another. Fans started asking questions. Was Ruby genuinely defending the story she cared about? Or was she furious that the version she had poured her emotions into was replaced by a version built around a more commercially bankable actress? And that's where the debate got heated. People began bringing up Ruby's career struggles, her controversial exit from Batwoman, her clashes with several productions, her inconsistent filmography, her reputation for walking away from roles. Fans wondered if this was really about Christy, or if Ruby was frustrated watching someone else's career skyrocket while hers felt stalled. But others felt Ruby had genuine emotional investment, and losing the role cut deep. Hollywood saw both sides, which is exactly why the conversation exploded rather than faded. Once Ruby's posts hit the algorithm, the internet chose their corners. Team Ruby Rose. These fans argued Ruby was speaking from personal experience. She cared about the original script. She understood the emotional layers of Christy's story. Hollywood rewrites often flatten meaningful queer narratives. Sydney's version of the film felt glossy instead of gritty. To them, Ruby wasn't jealous. She was heartbroken over the film she thought she was helping create Team Sydney Sweeney. These fans pushed back immediately. Sydney isn't responsible for the script changes. She didn't choose the marketing strategy. She didn't control the theatrical release. She trained intensely and took the role seriously. She delivered one of her best dramatic performances. Many felt Ruby's comments crossed a line. turning creative disappointment into a personal attack. Team Everyone Chill. This group said what many industry insiders were thinking. Christy didn't fail because of one actress. It failed because the market is brutal to mid-budget dramas. In the era of blockbusters and horror hits, true story biopics can struggle without huge marketing budgets or award season hype. But in the heat of the online battle, nuance wasn't invited. Everything became Sydney versus Ruby, hero versus villain, genuine creative pain versus personal bitterness, until the one person who truly mattered stepped into the conversation. The real Christy Martin, the boxer, the survivor, the woman whose life story is being told, was watching the chaos unfold, and she finally responded. In a long emotional Instagram post, Christy defended Sydney fiercely. She said, "Sydney worked her ass off, took the story seriously, gave herself fully to the role, treated the story and its message with respect, was her friend and ally." Christy didn't accuse Ruby of lying. She didn't deny the early script existed. She didn't dismiss Ruby's pain, but she made one thing extremely clear. Sydney Sweeney honored her life story, coming from the woman who lived the trauma, felt the punches, endured the pressure, and survived the darkest parts of the narrative. That statement carried enormous weight. It didn't erase Ruby's feelings, but it added a reality check. If the person the film is based on stands with Sydney, how much of Ruby's frustration is really about the movie, and how much is about everything that happened before the movie was made? Sydney didn't call Ruby out. She didn't throw insults. She didn't defend herself aggressively. Instead, she posted about the film's emotional impact. She said Christy meant more to her than box office numbers, that the film was for survivors. And if even a single person saw the movie and felt understood, the project was a success. It was a classy, measured response, the kind that avoids drama and lets public opinion settle naturally. Some people admired her professionalism. Others felt she was dodging the controversy. But intentionally or not, her quiet approach contrasted sharply with Ruby's intensity, and that contrast shaped how audiences interpreted the feud. Now that emotions are set aside, let's talk about the actual film. Because the truth is, Christy didn't flop because of one actor. Hollywood just isn't kind to mid-budget dramas anymore. Here's what likely happened. The marketing was subtle, not bold. The subject matter was dark and heavy. The film competed with larger releases, biopics without awards. Buzz rarely exploded in theaters. The tone of the movie was difficult to sell to general audiences. Sydney's performance was praised. Ruby's lost version may have been powerful, but neither one can single-handedly control a film's fate in a market dominated by giant franchises and shiny blockbusters. Hollywood analysts see Christy not as a failure of acting, but as a victim of timing, genre, and industry trends. But that doesn't make the personal hurt between Ruby and Sydney any less real. After everything, the comments, the backlash, the defenses, the confusion, one question remains. Who was actually right? Ruby Rose, a passionate artist who once believed in a completely different version of this story and watched it slip away? Or Sydney Sweeney, an actress who trained relentlessly, respected the real woman behind the story, and delivered a performance the critics genuinely praised? Then there's Christy Martin herself, the one person who lived the story, saying Sydney did the role justice. So where does that leave us? Probably here. Ruby reacted from a place of loss. Sydney acted from a place of commitment. And the movie struggled because Hollywood has changed. Feuds make headlines. Art gets overshadowed. And truth gets blurred somewhere between creative heartbreak and internet chaos. So now it's your turn to answer. Did Ruby Rose courageously speak up? Or emotionally lash out over a project she lost years ago? And would this feud even exist if Christy had been a box office hit? Let me know your thoughts below.